day, huh?
Oh man. Um, it's been insane. Obviously I got to be a grown up from time to time and actually do my regular job.
Yeah, so do
And,
I. You don't mind none of this, do you?
of course not,
Oh, all right.
man.
Just asking. Just
No,
asking.
no, no, man. Danny, I'll tell you, big part of what I knew I wanted to do, when I started this was obviously have, just unlimited open-ended conversations about whatever comes up, whatever's out there.
Yeah.
But also to, I mean, I think that's kind of a beautiful thing about this here is that we can promote, like I can promote you guys can promote us.
And we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You guys do. You guys talk about me all the time and I appreciate it. And yeah, I talk about y'all. And I think that's one of the greatest things about podcasting, in the format that it's in now is that, man, it's not a competition with anybody. It's just having great conversations. And
It's almost like having 5 news medias and you get to listen to which one you want to, and you can listen to all 5 of them and pick what you want from each, or you can pay attention to one of them, which we all know that happens.
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. Oh, and thank you last night for what you did. I mean, I think Jim has said we're over $500 now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think what you guys put out there yesterday, I think that's a great idea, that if you guys get the everything up to say $4,000 and you guys go out to say 10 different manufacturers and have them put in $400 a piece,
Well, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Get, next thing you know, you got $8,000 you paid for housing and food for the entire team.
And the good part about it is we don't even know who the team is, which means that there's no favoritism. You make the team, you train, you work hard, and we're just here to give you a little piece of comfort. So it's one less thing you have to worry about. When you guys were skating, vendors were, I remember going to Peoria, Illinois, and literally the whole, when you walked in, that whole level was nothing but vendors.
Yeah.
In 2001, I think it was 2001, the clap frame had just came out, and I actually bought one there.
Are you talking about that big Verducci thing?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that thing did for me was after I got off of it, I stayed on my heels more where I should have been to begin with. It was, I think it was a great idea, maybe a little ahead of its time. But,
I never had a skate on it, but Fred,
you were lucky.
Yeah, he tells me all the time that he had to, obviously he skated on EC Beast, and Phil, Phil was out there, purchased Verducci and all that at the time, and they made him skate on it one race. And when you're tired and the lactic acid's building up and everything, you're going to lock up. I mean, that just happens. That happens to everybody. And he said he had never locked up so hard in his life as when he had to skate on that frame in a race.
I was 10 miles from my house on my bike, and my legs locked on me, and had no way to get home but the pedal. And I could not feel my leg. I've never had that experience. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I had to climb a few hills, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that. I mean, I've gone everything through powerlifting. I started skating in a session when I was 14. I didn't know where I was going with it. It was just fun to me, and then when I met my cousin Lenny, he introduced me to the speed skating side on quad still. And then it just grew to inlines, and I fought it. I didn't get on inlines for 2 or 3 years after inlines. Actually, I didn't understand. I was taking my feet and moving them, but that was one straight.
Yeah.
And
it's a weird feeling.
It was, because you're going from sitting on, what would you say, a 4-inch to 5-inch flat thing on skates to doing this. And I wasn't comfortable. I mean, maybe I was one of those guys that were afraid of looking crazy, but I think everybody was. I just didn't. I was so good on quads at the time. I just didn't want to go crazy. I never really competed on inlines either. I was in 2001 season, I had, I was skating at a bunch of different skating rinks for session. And I met this guy that was really fast. He was session racing on inlines. I mean, no one could beat him. So I looked at him, I said, hey, are you on a team or something? Like, and he said, no. I said, well, I think I can get you to a place. A guy named Jimmy Wiederhold Sr. Go imagine. And Jimmy Wiederhold was actually still skating, but kind of end of his career, I think then. And we would drive literally an hour and a half to go practice twice a week.
Yeah.
And I still didn't practice. I literally wouldn't bring my skates in. I was, hey, you go do your thing. I'm just sitting here trying to learn. And then he had asked me to help him coach, and he got me kind of in the coaching part of it. And I mean, it was just a blast for me. I never had a competitive edge like that to go out there and, you know, like, oh, I'm going to go get somebody, you know, like it was never that. But I learned a lot through visually just watching and going to nationals. And, you know, you, Fourth, Chad, God, we could go, Harry, everybody at that time was really, really big. Sarah Syverson, I guess I'm saying her name right. She was in it. I mean,
Sarah Sayasani.
Yes. Yeah. I always remembered this.
Uh-huh.
And this frame was like this big. But
yeah, this itty bitty thing on this massive skate.
Oh, unbelievable. And you would look at her, she was, God, 4'4", and
if
no one
that.
could catch her. Yeah, and no one could catch her. She was almost like the new Jessica Smith.
Yeah.
You know, I think she came up behind her because she had already maybe started the transformation to ice at that time.
You know, it's weird you bring up her name, something like that, is the fact that, you know, I think it's very odd that, and it shouldn't be, is that we like the names you mentioned in the very beginning. You said like Fourth, me, Chad, Harry,
William Bowe.
Yeah, but
Bowen.
The women, more so, I think more so than the men, the women were more dominant. For a much longer period of time than the guys were. I mean, you know, I can't name them all, but geez, you know, you go back to Vicky, Julie, Teresa, Jessica, Cheryl. These were, you know, Jillian Rookard. They were some amazing talents that I just don't think even in regular inline discussions get enough.
Absolutely not. When you talk about the legends on the male side of our sport, I say ours, but you know what we've done and loved for so much. And then you go to the female side. I remember Jessica and Julie skating that World Cup that Phil had put on, and it was in Philly at Buggy Allman's rink.
Okay.
Someone had bumped Jessica.
Big mistake.
and I'm looking and I'm going, God, I feel like she's coming after me and I'm not even on the floor. I mean, that look that she gave that person, and God forsake if Jessica went down and Julie was in front, Julie was slowing the pack down to come out. I mean, it was just that, I think we had talked about this before. It was that drive and that energy that you wanted to win, that it's like, that's kind of missing in our sport now. Like, it's almost become a fashion show instead of that desire to go out there, shake hands at the gun. When the gun goes off, we're competitors. When the laps are over, we're friends again. But in between, when the gun goes off to the finish line, I mean, again, I was the Fourth Lacey Brett Whitman race. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, passing at 8 seconds with 84 millimeter 5-wheel frames on. I just don't see that in our skaters this year. Maybe they will, maybe they are, but I mean, the competition back then and the speeds back then were phenomenal. And then you look at them today and I get it. They're right there and they're faster. I mean, I think some people are running 8.3s, but can you imagine passing someone running an 8.3? You gotta be running an 8.0, 8.1. I mean,
well, there's no doubt about the technology that's out there today.
Oh, absolutely.
That yes, it is faster. I mean, I did get out there and skate on the 100s. And for me, it was a very awkward thing with the high center of gravity difference between that and the 90s.
Yes.
But I'll say, you know, the biggest difference for the athletes today when it comes to that technology is the ability to maintain that speed for so much longer because they
Yeah.
have such larger wheels. We had to push a lot further, a lot harder to keep those speeds up for a longer period of time. And going back to that, I think that it equalized the racing to the point where there was that competitiveness, that there was that desire to kill, that was just instinctively there because the racing was so much closer. Granted, okay, we could talk about a lot of different stuff. We could talk about pure numbers in the sports. We could talk about social media, its impact and stuff like that. We could talk about, the pussification of America and the softening of everybody's fucking attitudes. By the way, we can say fucking shit on my show.
Yeah, gotcha.
But when, going back to someone like Jessica Smith, I was fortunate enough to skate three world team residencies with her, 97, 98, 99. I do not believe she made it in 1996. I think she was still might have been like a juvenile girl at the time.
Okay. So she couldn't have competed for worlds anyway.
No. So, but when she could, again, you can't teach this killer instinct. It's in you, it's instinctual, and it's there. And when we would get out on that track, we would skate, of course, for someone like me and Fred, and we were already at regular practice skating with many time world champions. But when you get out on that bank track and we do residency, now you're skating with Derek Downing and Keith Turner and Julie and Teresa. But you take someone like Jessica, and of course, the Wolverines, ladies, they took her under their wing.
Phenomenal club.
But then she would get on that track and she wouldn't give us an inch. I mean, I have photos that I'm going to get digitized and put out there. I have so many residency photos that my mom and world and like preparing for worlds and stuff like that, we'd go like a week or two early.
Yeah.
Jessica's in those packs. I mean, pushing us, like shoving us around, getting her way in. And I think for her, obviously, that made her a better skater, because
obviously,
when you're trying to push around a 200-pound man, it's a lot good. Obviously, you're going to push, it's a lot easier for you to try to shoulder your way into a 200 or 100-pound, woman. But that number one thing right there, that killer instinct that says, fuck you, I'm here to win. When the gun goes off, I don't give a shit. I'm going to beat you to the line, and I'm going to beat you every lap after that. And I'm going to beat you into submission. And by the time this race is said and done, you're going to know I'm the best out there.
Yeah. If not, you skated your butt off to beat that person.
Absolutely. That was just the mentality. I'm here to race.
That's
right. And it's turned into a bit of a social event. I got to tell you, I love Tracy Donnelly. I think he's a great coach. I think he took over a very difficult situation at Champions where he was literally rebuilding the club from scratch. But you have a lot of these kids that are coming into it, and you don't want to run them out.
No.
You want them to skate. And so in between, that was a big rule. He's like, no, you're not getting on your phone in between races, in between practice laps, between when we go from the warm up to the relays or whatever. Stay off your goddamn phones. Yeah. And that's a big struggle because everybody wants,
because social media, we all know, just completely runs this country now. And you can't go nowhere without someone picking it up, turning their camera on. It's almost like they're waiting for something to happen just so they can be the golden boy or child of the day. And back then, when you guys skated, we were lucky to have the hyperboard. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no Facebook. There was no this or that, or
AOL, and it was hard as hell to operate. But you were lucky to even have that.
Yeah, and that's why when people talk about the greatest skater of all time, and I'm not throwing stabs at anyone, it's always you hear about Joey Mantilla because of social media. But then if you do your research and go back, there is this guy that sits way up here called Chad.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had that show when we were talking about Chad's resume. And I said, if you compare that to anybody's resume, in any sport, that's pretty hard to beat. I
Yeah.
mean, he skated in rain, wind, different wheels, different roads, cobblestone. I mean, outdoors, indoors. And there were people actually kind of arguing with me on, well, you got Michael Phelps with 29 Olympic medals. Well, yeah, how many world titles does he have? 39. And I said, well, the last time I checked, 52 is bigger than 39.
Yeah.
And there's no disrespect. Michael Phelps swam in a climate controlled pool, never outside.
Right.
He didn't have to, and all the respect to him, all the respect to Lance, all the respect to Kobe, Jordan, you know, these athletes.
They're all controlled environments.
That's right. When you look at inline speed skating and you look at where, I mean, and I even said this, could you imagine if Chad went to ice 5 years earlier and stopped at like 30 world titles? Can you imagine how many more medals he might have gotten at the Olympics?
Yeah.
I mean, and people look at it and it's like, this guy built the double push. He put speed skating on the map for them 10-year, I guess about 10-year realm that he did. And you look at that, and that's the reason why you have the double push today. That's the reason why Joey, Aaron, Brittany, because they saw him and they said, I want to do what he did.
But see, a lot of people, you know, the thing that I'll training with him, and of course, we were out there all the time. And so
exactly
following behind him and things like that, the mechanics would fall into place. And we just, and it was, again, I can only say this. Have you ever read the book called Outlier by Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
All right. So it's a book. I recommend everybody to read it. It doesn't apply across the board, but it's this book that has, the premise of the book is it talks about somebody like Michael Jordan. It talks about the amount of practice and the amount of shots he took to get to where he's at. And it's essentially this rule of 10,000. What people like, someone like Chad, people need to remember that Chad didn't start skating at, 17, 16 years old, make the world team, and all of a sudden become this phenomenal athlete.
Exactly.
Chad's parents owned a skating rink, and Chad had been skating. Literally, there's pictures of Chad skating when he's an infant, as soon as he could walk. He's in quads. He's in art skates. He's in, brown bag specials. He's out there his entire life. He put in time.
Yes.
And he did, he dabbled when he was young. I mean, of course, like I did art skating. I did figure skating. That was my only time on quads was figure skating.
I actually tried that a little bit too.
I didn't.
They liked me because I was tall, and
Yeah.
they said that I was powerful with my push, so I made the girl look good. And
Right.
as soon as they said, I said, "Well, am I here to make the girl look good?" They were like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh well, maybe."
No one cares about the guys. No one cares about the guys in that.
Yeah, no one.
But Chad skated all day, every day. It's what he grew up doing. Plus, he played hockey. And when you take that maneuvering, you take the balance that he developed from all of that, biomechanically, the double push came naturally. It's not something that he went out there and tried to develop and said, how do I fix? We didn't have that shit. When 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't like today. You can buy VO2 max equipment. You can buy this, you can buy that, and you can evaluate all of your different things. We didn't have that back then. What Chad was doing developed completely natural, and it ran with it. And then what you started having was everybody in the world says, okay, how do we emulate that? How do we duplicate that? And the reality is not everybody's body moves the same way.
Absolutely.
You don't have the same twitch muscle fibers. You don't have the same width. And
you got to train people differently to their body size and to what they're doing. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. They think that if this person just goes out there and skates, then this tall guy, he's going to skate the same way. The shorter guy's going to skate. No, you have to adapt to your body chemistry. I went to the gym because I wanted to get a little swelled up because I didn't want you to outdo me today. But there were some people in there, I was helping them, and this girl comes up and she goes, I blow away on windy days. And I was like, because they came up to me because I had this shirt on. My wife works at Frito-Lay, PepsiCo organization. And they go, you work for Frito-Lay? I'm like, no, my wife does. So we started talking. And I mean, she probably weighed 102 pounds. I mean, but she's like almost 5'9", so she's a rail. And I was telling her, well, if you want to put on muscle weight, you got to do low reps, heavy weight for your BMI. And I said, I don't expect you to go over there and grab the 50-pound dumbbells because they weigh more than you if you couldn't carry them. I said, but rule of thumb is heavy weights, light reps, builds muscle, light weights, a lot of reps, defines muscle and burns it and leans you out. And so I talked to them maybe for about 10 minutes and they go, well, thank you very much. Tell Stephanie I said hi. And going back to my old weightlifting days, a guy named George Hector actually trained me, who was a 2-time world champion, and in 1985 took 4th in the world strongman contest. If I didn't get strong, it wasn't because he didn't know what he was doing. It's because I'm not listening.
Yeah.
And I think people today, I don't know if it's fair to say coaches have gotten soft in the way that they have to train, or they're comfortable. Like when we were on top of the world in inlines with Chad and Forth and everybody that was there, when they started to pass us, it seems like the coaches were like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, all right, they passed us. But no one ever went after them to chase them to find out, well, why did they pass our elite skaters? And what do we need to do about it? It's almost like they got comfortable at that. It's almost like when you had a job for 20 years and you're like, well, I hate it, but I don't want to leave, but I'm comfortable. I can't get fired. I'm comfortable. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah.
So did our coaching get comfortable, or were they just happy that we had our 10-year realm and okay?
I have a whole theory about this. And it goes back to the Charles Walligs. It goes back to the figure skating associations that continued to tank us inside of going to the Olympics and things like that. And what it was, I believe it was a systematic failure of the entire sport. What you had a sport that was built around figure skating, because that's what everybody wanted to watch at the Olympics was exactly. Figure skating. So the next thing you know is that's what's at the rinks. That's what the easiest thing for everybody to get into, less impact, so on and so forth. So you have rink owners now that they're looking at growing the numbers solely, for their benefit. It's, hey, they're running a business, and that's fine.
I was going to say, you're in a rink, you want to get you want to put in your rink what's going to make you money.
Absolutely.
That's in anything.
Yeah. Anything. And you don't blame them. But then what you have is a lot of the coaches at the time were the rink owners. And what they started, I guess, skipping forward a lot, was that you started having waning numbers within the sport of speed skating. Because in the late 90s, no one gave a shit about figure skating. It was all about inline. That's what's going to take this roller sports to the next level, was going to be inline. Right. Well, as you started, where, people like me, people like Forth, a lot of other skaters, they started becoming disenfranchised with the sport for various reasons. And we started to walk away, which caused other people to start walking away, which caused dwindling numbers, which ultimately the rink owners started saying, as the coaches, why am I putting all this effort in here? Look, the one that I know for certain, because his son became an Olympic gold medalist, was Paul. Paul's a phenomenal coach. He knew how to coach each individual kid. No matter what it took, he knew what it took. But at the same time, you cannot blame the man for putting that time and effort into his son. That's his son.
That's right.
And
absolutely.
He essentially stopped coaching on a mass level once his son left the sport. Well, there's not a whole lot left. I mean, does Rob Dunn still coach up in Michigan?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't think he does. But you have Jay Ingram up there. Well, Jay Ingram was on the skating end and the sponsor, and he was the manager of the Simmons team when I was out there, still skating, still competing, and operating as the manager.
He was the world team coach also this year. The world team coach that just finished up.
Yeah. So now he's doing that, but you had a lot of that, and it just had this mass exodus, and the rink owners, I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame the rink owners for that happen to also be coaches to kind of walk away. And so now, you've got to replace all of that. But because of the way the structure was, there was nobody there. I will say,
no one to guide and show, the
next generation.
When the floodgates open, when in your era, a lot of people left in a very short period of time that gave no one mentorship.
Yeah.
And so people were trying to figure out like, okay, well, where's the videos at? They were obviously videos weren't the greatest quality. So you couldn't really get any real data from that. And, you know, you're absolutely right. When Chad went to ice, it got other people to go to ice, not by that's Chad's fault, by all means. But I always say it was like Chad got bored. Like, what am I going to do? Go to Worlds and get 5 more gold medals? I got to go challenge myself.
Yeah. What do I need? I need more spacers for under my bedposts.
Yeah. And I look at it like you can't blame these athletes. You know, I was talking to Brett, and Brett said that he felt that our best chance on ever getting into the Olympics was to win your guys' era, because we had a lot of people that were just strong and the sport was exciting. And, you know, again, you go into you know, Florida, and you had vendors galore. And if someone would have actually took that and marketed that and showed the Olympic Committee, look what we're doing. Look, we're filling this place in Pensacola. We're filling Lincoln, Nebraska. Look at our vendors. Look at this. And I was told that, I don't know if it was you, Sarge, at the time, whatever, that if you don't take them all, you can't have just speed. Instead of getting their foot in the door with speed and then trying to bring everything else in, they wanted everything.
Right.
And that's just not good business. I say you get the one in, and then you work to gradually get the others.
Well, Fred and I had this conversation, and you're exactly. I mean, look, I don't know for a fact. I was never in any of these meetings.
Yeah, I wasn't either. Just
of course,
by what I was told.
Yeah, I'm some asshole kid that a lot of people didn't like to begin with, and so I'm catching secondhand information from all this. And yeah, I was told, for example, again, because the backbone of roller sports was on figure skating, that there were so many people entrenched in USARS that said, no, if you're not taking figure skating, artistic skating, you're not getting speed skating. Yeah. And
that was their foot in the door.
Yeah. There was no foresight. And it's the same thing when there was this mass exodus and the coaches left and everybody else left. Nobody had spent time training up these other individuals to get them ready for this. So there was nothing done at USARS to say, all right, maybe we can't get figure skating in here this year, but let's get inline in there. Let's get a bunch of interest in there and let's roll with that. Even if it takes us 2 or 3 more Olympics to get in there, because maybe we can get hockey in there, because roller hockey around the world is big as well.
So is Derby.
Yeah. But
not only that, how would I like to know what artistic would have thought about if every time they said, how come we can't get in the Olympics? And they said the same thing they told us, go to ice. Because if you look at it, inlines could be a summer sport. Yes. Absolutely a summer sport.
Absolutely.
You know, you could have literally had it where, to me, the people that skated on ice 2 years earlier would have trained to be in the Olympics on inlines. And I think it would have really brought a lot of attention, not only to America, but around the world, that look, these guys, Bart Swings, perfect example. The guy won the Berlin Marathon in September. Mm-hmm. He's squatting a week before the Olympics. He goes to the Olympics and he brings home a gold medal. Mm-hmm. Now, everyone can talk about that mass start. To me, the mass start's like the last man out. You can talk about Joey, Bart Swings, and everybody else that's in there. When you're a 29-time world champion like Joey was, he knows you're going to get pulled. He knows you're going to get grabbed. He knows not to be in the center of the pack on the last lap, because that's never going to be a good thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened on his thinking process. Like, I don't know. I think Joey's a strong skater from when I saw him skate. And
he's a phenomenal skater. He really is. He's a phenomenal skater.
Yeah. And to see him at the national level when I watched him skate, and relays when I watched him skate, me personally, I'd have been on Bart Swing the whole entire race.
Yeah.
Sorry. You do it on inlines when you're skating marathons. You do it when you be on him, because you watch that whole 16 and a half laps or whole 16 laps. Everyone's saying Bart, Joey favored to win the gold.
Yeah.
But Bart's in the front and Joey's like in 12th place. And I'm going, what's he waiting on? Like, he's smarter. I know he's a smarter skater than this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and at that level, I just don't see any excuses. I mean, you have the best trainers, you got massage therapists there, you got everything at your disposal. And I'm not picking on Joey. I just think his game plan didn't go like he wanted to. I think more of the slip caused him to not get a medal than that guy. If he didn't know going into that race that he wasn't going to get bumped, pulled on, pushed on, I just don't think he's not that smart of a person to know. He skated a lot of world races on inlines to know. Yeah, that's just that race. Well, you've skated 500s before. You're getting bumped, pulled. If they know you're the favorite, they're going to hold you back as long as they can.
Yeah, try skating against two people from Colombia.
Yeah, exactly.
500 meter. See what happens.
Yeah,
I had to do that. I had to do that in 99, and I mean, damn near got into a fist fight with one of them afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, so I looked at that race like, wow, man, like, did Joey just draw blank for 16 laps, or what was he thinking to put himself there? And again, I have nothing against Joey. I'm not beating up on him. I'm just looking because I watched the race probably like you watched the race. You were probably going, Joey, you got to move up. There's 3 laps to go. Like why are you back? Like you're thinking in your head, what's he thinking? But we don't know because we're not on that level anymore.
You know what I mean? The honest, Danny, I'll tell you, honest, I didn't watch. I didn't watch any of the Olympics. I watched Aaron Jackson.
Wow. Yeah.
I refused. I mean, it was for me, I couldn't justify, and I'm glad that the ratings for the Olympics were down 70%. I hope that, you know what, it would suck for Joey Cheek if it affected his ability to do broadcasting for him. But I hope that this Olympics cost NBC so much fucking money that the next time that they go in, they say, why the hell are we holding this event in China? And we're putting these, I mean, it's like a dystopian society where they're building this massive downhill right next to a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I thought that was a little I looked at that whole thing, and then, Jason, you got to look at it. They put this bid in probably 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, it wasn't the same. But at the same time, people were talking about that girl from Russia that tested positive for a thing. And I was talking to my wife, and she was saying how, well, why is she allowed to skate? I said, because she's in China. And she goes, well, but she's Russian. And I said, but Russia and China are in cahoots, and they're getting ready to invade Ukraine.
Well, yeah, Vladimir Putin and the president of China came out at the opening ceremonies arm in arm. They were next to each other.
And the funny part is, this administration didn't send anyone there knowing they were going into Ukraine. I'm like, I would have had someone there just to keep an eye on them. But you look at that, I told her, I said, honey, you're in communist China. They've already taken multiple reporters and hidden them away. We don't even know if they're still alive.
I was watching a TV, and the reason, the defining reason I was going to watch simply so I could support Team USA.
Absolutely.
And I watched a Dutch reporter be taken off the street. He was doing live and with his camera. They had the cameraman, and they came up. The Chinese secret police or whatever came right up and grabbed him while he was live on the air.
Put him in isolation for the whole Olympics.
Which is insane. He was just doing a report from the outside. He wasn't saying anything controversial.
You know what? And I've been joking around about it, saying, I bet you won't hear from any of them Chinese athletes that didn't medal. No. Because they're probably not alive.
they're either dead or they're in gulag somewhere. They're in a camp somewhere.
And my wife looks at me, and I'm like, that's just the way I said, you got to understand, this guy's killed his family members. He don't care about nothing. He
don't give a shit.
They lost a lot of money. I'm thinking, you can kind of see that the Olympics in the past couple of them have definitely dwindled down. It's almost going to be like, we're not even going to have this anymore. And if they don't do something about that tested positive with that girl, I'm not saying it's her fault, but you have to go back and you have to give the American girls relay team back their medals. You got to go back. You might as well give Lance Armstrong his 7 titles, because the water down and trickle down effect from that. Now, you're probably going to hear a lot more about it now because everyone's back home and they're safe. But Yeah, I don't think if I was a coach or an athlete, I'm probably going to keep my mouth pretty shut while I'm on
Yeah,
the
you're gonna be good over there. You're gonna be a good boy and girl over
Yeah,
there.
and it's a shame because now I just read an article that gas they've already kind of are in Ukraine, and now it's like the fuel prices, and we talk about skating, like what is it all? Yeah, okay, if you can afford the boots, you can afford to go to these meets, go to invitationals. Well, when gas is $8 a gallon, or
Yeah.
when you can't, what you're gonna have to start picking what you want to do.
Well, yeah,
And
if you're skating and you can afford to pay $150 for a set of wheels and you can continually do this, if the price of gas goes up, let's just be realistic. You're not in a very cheap sport. You're not in a sport that the school's paying for. You're paying for it out of your pocket. It's a luxury event. So if the gas goes up 20, 30 cents, you can continue to afford to pay for the gas and go on. No one can afford for this shit when it goes up to $7, $8 a gallon.
and it's probably coming.
I saw
Look,
you're in the business.
25 and a half years.
Yeah.
Right now, people are starting to just put 100 gallons in their tanks because that's $360.
Yeah. So my diesel truck, my F-350,
Okay.
the main tank on that truck has 45 gallons. Okay.
You're pushing close to $200 to fill it up, aren't you?
My back tank, I have an auxiliary tank in the bed, which is 100 gallons. So if I run that thing empty, I put 150 gallons in my truck. Yeah. I'm damn near $500 to fill my truck up.
And by the way, that's pretty hard to pass to the customer, because last year I actually got into the mowing business a little bit, just a little side thing. So when I decided I want to retire, I have something that's established. But, for you're in construction. Last year, you were probably beating your head up against the wall with wood prices. Sheet of plywood, $90. How are you going to go out there and say, well, I could have did this job last year for 15,000, but right now it's 45, and get business? The housing market itself, you're paying almost new home construction, 100,000 more, I would think, at least in Maryland.
You want to know I'm going to tell you a little secret. So what we do actually is all insurance work.
Okay.
The insurance companies we use, we'll probably bore everybody to death with this shit. We might lose the last 2 viewers on this one.
Okay.
We do insurance work, and our price guides get updated every single month. And there's the main estimating software has an entire department of several hundred people that take pricing from across the country, and the prices go up based on local material and gas prices. Well, they also factor in labor prices.
Exactly.
So when we go out to do a job, since it is insurance money, we never, ever have to, unless there's like a specialty item, we never have to worry about the price, which is if you think about it, of course, the job's got to get done. Someone's house had a fire or flooded or whatever. They've got to get it fixed. The mortgage company's got a vested interest in it. The insurance company owes to get it done.
Exactly.
So we never have to worry about it on that side. Our business is more or less inflation and recession proof. But I've like Fred is, kind of made me think about it when you talk about Phil with EC Beast. Actually, Phil reached out to him today because Fred put an ad out for his company. He has a construction company. He builds barn dominiums, he builds commercial buildings, things like that, doing very well, and had an ad went out on his Facebook page. Anyway, Phil reached out to him, said hi, but he's a contractor for this major manufacturer. And a year ago, they were putting barn packages out for, $200,000, and now they're $350,000.
Oh, it's crazy, ain't it?
Yeah, and it's big timber. I mean, so you got to have huge chunks of wood,
Exactly.
But Dan, I want to go back to this really quick because I want to circle around to this. Something you brought up was regarding, like, say Joey and Bart and all that. What I will say is that on inline, on roller, most athletes are considered kind of like utility men. They're supposed to be able to skate almost every single race. Doesn't matter whether it's sprint or long, last man out. More or less, you skate that. When you start getting to ice, you start focusing more, and your training becomes more centered on what your events.
Exactly.
And a show I had put out right as the Olympics was starting was, the potential cancellation of the Olympics, how it's going to affect the athletes if there's delays from COVID and things like that.
Exactly.
When it comes to inline, you can have a slip up, you can have an error, and it's not as big of a deal because that's the nature of this sport. And we train for all of those different things. When it comes to ice, we
saw it with Aaron
focused
in the qualifying.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a perfect example.
Yes. It's very hard to adapt for them in those types of environments. And I think that's just a function of the sport, not necessarily a quality of the athlete.
Absolutely. Where I was going with that was that I think, it's funny because people always say, well, have you ever skated ice? I'm like, no. I said, from talking to Jimmy Wiederhold Jr. when he went to ice for a little bit, from talking to Herbie Herbison, who's also probably going to be the future of long track, Sabian Tibbs, all of them. The first thing they tell you is just throw all that inline stuff out the door, because the only thing you got is about 5% that you can take with you. Ice is so much more strict form, this, that.
Yep.
You can't stand up. You can't touch the person in front of you. And when you look at that, like I believe Bart Swing on his website, he's getting ready to do a couple marathons now on inlines, where it seems like in America, we stick strictly to that discipline that they're doing. Maybe we need to change it up and go, okay, I know Joey's getting up there in age, so we don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to qualify or try it out for the next Olympics. But let's say Aaron, do you go back to inlines for maybe 2 years? Do you kind of have fun with it, let your body come down, inlines, hey, get back into it, and then maybe a year before the actual Olympic trials, get back into the ice? Because it looked like we were winning a lot of World Cups. It looked like we were setting a lot of world records, but then when the Olympics came, it was almost like we were burnt out. Well, and then the people that we beat, they were ahead of us. Like, they laughed at us for winning, because they knew that we ain't even peaked yet. You guys haven't seen the best of us.
Well, that's where I'm going. That's where I was going to go back to this. And that's kind of where I was heading with this, is that, those guys just landed in Norway. They didn't come back here to the US. They still have another World Cup event and the World Championships over there. I don't believe, look, the Olympics is, at this point in our society, is a television event. It's a chance to get everybody in the same place and highlight this, and for them to sell ads.
Exactly. It's a money making, it's almost its own sport.
Yeah.
It's a money. Yeah.
So were these athletes really peaking at the Olympics?
I think they were coming down from the World Cups.
I think so. And I think they're going to go right back up, because at the end of the day, the reason the Olympic records get beaten every year in every single event is because it only happens every 4 years.
4 years.
But those world records, those are a whole lot. Those are faster. The world records are faster than the Olympic records. So I don't think, personally, I'm sitting here looking at this team. I'm looking at the caliber of those athletes, and they are phenomenal athletes. And I look at it and I say, you know what? Based on the training, based on the schedule, I don't think half of them were even ready to peak at the Olympics. Yeah, hey, it's great because the IOC and, that's the world stage, and you can get a lot of sponsorships and money that way, because the gold medalists, they get paid.
Well,
so,
I mean, let's face it, the only 3 names they were throwing out in America were Joey, Brittany, and Aaron.
Yeah. Well,
they put a lot of pressure on them.
Can't take away the fact that, it's pretty phenomenal what Renee did with them down there, bringing them out of Central Florida, where look, I did an interview yesterday with a guy named Shane Vitko. This is a phenomenal guy. I can't wait for this interview to come out there. You have to look him up. Okay. Anyway, he's from Boston. He's originally from Boston, lived out in LA, did a bunch of stuff out there, and then now he lives right up the road from me in Texas here. When he was asking me about this, and I said, yeah, I started my career with everything in speed skating. He looked right at me, he says, what the fuck? Here?
What's that?
In Texas?
Yeah.
No, he's looking at me because he's from Boston. He understands, he played hockey growing up, ice hockey. And so
a lot of that on lakes. Lakes.
So he's like, you did that down here. And that's the same response I always get when you're from Texas. Like, yeah, I did inline speed skating and then went to ice. What Renee did was like lightning in a bottle. There was nothing else down there. There was no other real athletes. There was nobody before Joey, Brittany, and Aaron. Don't get me wrong. You had, over the last 10, 15 years, Debbie Rice and several other, people have gone down there, Bont, stuff like that. And they built this really great community down there. But back in the 90s, there was nobody for these kids to chase. So it was develop these athletes. What Renee did with them was phenomenal. And then to put them on the Olympic stage, for them to go out there, I think that was an amazing story to be told. But I don't think they're peaking. I don't think they were even ready to peak in the Olympics. I think Erin's going to go out. I think she's going to win not only the next World Cup plus the World Championships, and I think she's going to set the world record.
Me and Jim were talking about this, and if you know that the Olympics are every February for winter, every year that you're training for the Olympics till the Olympics come, you want your body to peak in February, right? That would make sense, right? So the Olympics are over. The Olympics are over. They're going to be 4 years from now in February. Mm-hmm. So what do? You train to peak every single year till you get to the Olympics in February. Would that make sense?
Yeah, like a circadian rhythm for your sleep.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So when the Olympics come, guess what? Your body has already know that it's going to peak in February.
Yeah.
It seems like you said, and I've said, and I think a lot of people, it almost looks like we peaked in December, maybe January. And you know as well as anybody else out there that was on the level that you were, peaking is probably the most important part. When I was skating at Cowan, and I believe you guys wore the LC Speed uniforms also going into a couple of national. I know Fourth did. Mm-hmm. One of the first things Jimmy would do after regionals, because our region was the first one to skate regionals. We had like 7 weeks between. He would be like, "I'll see you all in a week and a half," because he knew if he kept training us, probably by the 4th week we were going to peak, and we would be on the downside by the time we got the nationals.
Burn everybody out.
That's right. So he let us have like a week and a half off. Now, mind you, I didn't skate regionals, didn't skate. I was there to learn how to coach and to get in people's way to make them better, to make them pass me. Because I was this 220-pound guy that was into lifting. There was nothing that my body said that I'm a speed skater. I mean, looking at me, and I know that you had said one time, I love him to death respectively. Chad did not have what you've seen when you put them spandex and skates on.
No.
You looked at me and you're going, why is that power lifter got on inlines? That's what you were looking at me. So I always, and I tried to explain this on our show one time. I said, you have to love the skate before you get into the sport of skating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you lose the love of skating, the sport's irrelevant. Don't matter if you do hockey, derby, artistic. When you fall out of love with this thing called skating, that's what introduced me, and that's what made me want to speed skate, and that's what wanted me to go out and do inlines when I finally got on them. And when you look at that, if you didn't have the love of skating, you would have never taken it there. If Chad didn't love to skate, he would have never went as far as he did. He would have told his dad, I'm done. I want to go do something else. Jimmy Blair would have never started making boots. Dave Simmons would have never did what he did. And now he's into bikes and making bike shoes. None of those guys would have done that because they would have said, well, I'm going to go try this. You know what I mean? Like when you look at that, so I've always loved skating.
Yeah.
But it took me to other levels of skating that made me appreciate it and love it more. So when I go to practice for not only one, but to help the team, 2, to be there to help support the team in the sport. And if anything needs to be done, I will do it. Even Sunday, I walked in with 8 Gatorade bottles, sugar-free, cold as anything. Here, everybody have one. You know what I mean? You don't have to skate to support it, but you should be there and understand what you're doing. So when people look at me and I say, on your right foot, or your left foot, why is your front frame over towards your big toe? When you go into the corners, does it feel like your foot's flipping over? They're like, yeah. I said, why don't you move it towards your middle toe? And then you'll have that bigger, greater push. They look at me like, well, how do you know that? You never skated before. I'm like, I don't know. I only grew up 20 years learning from some of the best and watching the best skaters in the world from our country skate. You almost, it's almost like you forced to, you don't, even if you didn't want to learn it, you're going to learn it. Yeah. I used to look at all the pro athletes when they would show their boots and pictures, like where they were. Some of their frames, I don't even know how they skated on them because that's the way they like it. And I'm sure your frame setup is different from mine.
You want to know a little secret that I always had?
What's that?
So as a sprinter, I needed more rebound.
Yeah.
I needed to feel something coming, like just that pop off that skate.
That pop. Almost like when you squat, you get that pop off the bottom.
Exactly. So what I would have done is Dave would actually build my boots with the mounts kind of in just a hair. They weren't flat. They were angled in just a little bit.
1-2%.
Yeah. And I always skated with an Ultimate Attitude flag frame, and it was softer. And when I would mount it, it would I could literally take my skate in the middle wheel, the skate by itself, and I could spin it back and forth on the middle wheel. But when I put pressure on it, they would all, of course, make contact. But when I would sprint, there was almost like a spring. It's just a little bit, but it was a little, there was something there, you know.
And you know what's funny? That to hear that, to me, that makes perfect sense. To these kids, they're like, that guy's crazy. But if they did it, and if they've experienced what you're saying that you did, they would understand the whole entire, like the sports part of why you did that. You know what I mean? And then on top of it, the national floor, which I've skated on before when they had it in Pensacola, because they had one night they had it where everyone could get on the floor at night, whatever. Yeah. Like it had a spring anyway to it. You know, like it always had that little pop to it anyway. But you're right. The little tricks that you learn and that can be done. It's phenomenal. And my first set of pinnacles were 15 years old when I had my second set made. I couldn't even skate in them anymore. I would tell Jimmy, I kept saying, I think I'm getting a new pair. And I waited and I said, no, let me get them re-leathered. And then he re-leathered them. I couldn't keep my foot. I'd go 40 minutes to practice. So I couldn't skate for 10 minutes. My feet would fall asleep. And it got so bad where I couldn't feel my foot hit the floor. So it sounded like this guy going like this every time, you know, and I would take my skates off and I'd have to walk for almost 20 minutes to get to circulate. And I finally said, I'm going to Georgia. I'm flying into Atlanta. I got a wedding to go to. I called Jimmy up. I said, Jimmy, I know I probably should have give you some more time. Can you come mold? He knew exactly where I was. I was about 20 minutes outside the airport. He comes over there, molds my feet. I paid. I said, here, just take it. Here's an extra 50 for coming out. Thank you. You know, couldn't wait to get them on. And now I can actually skate a whole practice without my feet falling asleep. But, you know, me and Jim actually had a conversation about what's the most important thing in your equipment. And I was like, wheels, because I don't care what your boots are. Your boots are all preference. That's just what you're happy with. Bearings, we could never, ever exceed what they would do. I mean, go get an ABEC 8. It doesn't matter. You can run an ABEC 1 and get the same result because we don't skate that fast. We don't push that bearing that fast. Right. But if your wheels don't hold that floor,
nothing you can do.
To me, yeah, that's just constant. You know, you can go cheap on some things, go cheap on bearings. And if you like Pinnacle or Simmons or this or Bonner, I don't care. That's all not, they're not bad products. They're great products. It's all here when it comes to that. With your frames, some people like a not as a stiff frame. I've skated on the Vanquish. I'm skating now on the EO frame because I'm older and I want all the benefits of the lightness of that boot and thing that I can. And the wheels, to me, I think more people should definitely focus on wheels, especially with the floors now. You know, your things are different. different states, you can use water, you can use oil still, you can do this. And to me, that's where you should really concentrate with your money. Go out and buy yourself a set of twin cams for $50, because you're probably going to beat that guy to just pay $200 for his bearings, because he has no idea that them bearings, if his wheels don't grip, it don't matter what bearing he has in.
Right.
You know? So yeah, it's always fun to watch. And, you know, I always talk about what's the most exciting race you ever watch. And I said, Tiny Tots. I think they're the most adorable. They skate one lap in 55 seconds. And then the second ones that I like are the junior and senior men, because they can do it in like 51 seconds. But the Tiny Tots get out there and they're not poisoned yet by the sport. They're the greatest thing. Everyone's cheering them on. They're falling down, they're getting up, and they're giving it everything, just everything. And then to watch the junior and senior men, of course, that's exciting. It's
great racing,
yeah. I always say they're the three. Tiny Tots, junior, and senior men are always been, they're just, I just, you know, I love the sport, and I love the fact of skating so much that you just have to enjoy everything. With all the, I guess social media has caused a lot of drama in the sport, and people like to post what they want to post and do what they want to do. And hey, it is what it is. And if it was golf, it'd be the same way. If baseball, the same way. It doesn't matter. You know, people go to ours to watch ours, you know, in your heyday, you put forth you, Brett, Chad Horn, Harry Vogel, all on the line. The first thing people do is go, man, I hope I see a wreck.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually watched, I can't, because everybody, the 500 meter, you know, someone's going down.
Absolutely.
Now I was watching, I believe it was Harry Vogel. It was in Lincoln, Nebraska. I believe it was the 2-man. He comes around, I'm going to say it's corner 2. So it's the third cone. No, second cone. As somebody was coming in, they took his path. He went Superman in the middle of that corner and hit the wall before he landed. And I was like, and let me tell you something, back then, all of them were carrying the mail. All of them. And I've never seen a fall. It just looks slow motion, and you're watching these guys and you're going, my God, they're hauling. Like, and you know, it was nothing to see Chad and Harry getting into it anyway after the race and the side. I mean, Chad, he was a hothead. I remember him, and I can't remember who he was in the face with. Lincoln, Nebraska, right as you were coming up from all the vendors downstairs.
Yeah.
Terrence Allman and his brother come upstairs. They're getting ready to throw down. They get in the middle of them, and his brother looks at both of them. The champ is here. I mean, but that goes back to what you said. You had that drive of competitiveness that you just wanted to win. I mean, you probably seen them in practice as a champions. Fist fights break out. This break.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard Brett was telling me stories how he would go there and think that he was the best when he first moved down there. He couldn't get through the first 12 people in the pace line because it was just that 65 people. You have a warm up. Everyone does one lap, and he can't even get to third. He said, but you adapted, you learned, you realized that you had to, I don't want to say this in a negative way. You had to surrender everything you know and learn and listen and know that the only way to get to that next level is to pay attention, to learn, to listen. And I know I'm not going to be there yet, but I will get there.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't imagine what it was like trying to pick a 4-man out of that.
Well, that's actually part of what drove Fred and I apart for so many years, was the closed practices. Well, actually it was my mom and Fred's dad that caused us to start having closed practices where parents weren't allowed to come anymore. Not because they got into a fight or anything, but they were screaming and yelling at us so violently because we were competing for the same spots on these teams. And it would usually end up like Fred and I would be on the team together. But they were screaming at us so violently to do better at practice so we could qualify for these spots that Paul eventually kicked all parents out and stopped allowing. And that's was Fred and I just kind of drove us apart. But we would have regionals, building up to regionals. We would do 2-a-days, and Paul would have flat out runoffs. We would do individual races, and it would be based on, of course, on your age. We would go through the whole process of whatever divisional distances you had to race. We would go through that whole process, and then he would start mixing and matching all of the relays. And it wasn't just like, okay, well, we're going to do this person here and this person here. No, he had a board. He had pieces of paper that he would shuffle around and say, okay, well, Jason's here, Fred's here, and we're going to separate these guys. We're going to put them over here, and we're going to try them with, it's hard. It's hard when you have, Fred, Chad, me, Ashley, all on the world team at the same time to say, okay, well, you're skating on the second one automatically kind of thing. But what he would do is he would mix us up with some of these amazing, phenomenal guys that just for whatever reason weren't able to capitalize at, the national level. Exactly. Billy Rainey, Gerald Kendall. Well, Gerald's a national champion. But I mean, so many of these guys, so many of these phenomenal skaters, but for whatever reason, just couldn't do it at the national level. And they would mix all of us up and put over here and over here and over here, mix us up for 2-man, 4-man, 4-mix, all this other stuff. It was the most insane process to go through because you're literally killing yourself for that spot.
Yeah.
It was like, and it wasn't, and I say this because look, everybody who knows me, they know my time in the sport. They know that Chad and I never had a lot of love for each other. And it's not like we were friends, and when we were younger, like we were friends, and it was weird as we got older. And I have to acknowledge, I mean, I can only acknowledge my part in it. I was an asshole, but it wasn't the thought of, okay, I want to chase Chad. It was, I know that I'm a damn good skater, and I want my opportunity to be on that senior 4-man, not because it's a foregone conclusion to win because Chad's on our team, but because I'm going to be out on that floor and I'm going to be presented and I'm going to dominate everybody else out there that I have to race.
Well, and you know what, that's, even though you're like everyone's skating at 5 laps, you're in your mind, you're going, I'm going to have the best 5-lapper out of all of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that in today's skaters.
We actually would get into it internally on the team.
Yeah.
For competition of, oh yeah. Oh, you ran I don't even know the times at this point. Yeah. Oh, you ran 48 seconds. Okay, cool. I'm going to run 47. Yeah. Like we were literally,
you were competing not only against other teams, but you were competing, you were yourself imploding.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because when Brett had showed me that race with him in 4th, mm-hmm. He goes, Danny, I swear to you, from what I can remember, we were literally screaming at each other every time. He mm-hmm. said, because we were always trying to push each other to, and he goes, you just sit there and it just drives you crazy. And I look at that, and like I say, in 2000, I was always told about the Wolverines, champions, mm-hmm. Piedmont, these Southern teams. And you're going, and then I go to nationals and I'm going, now I know why everyone talks about these things. Look at these guys. They're insane. Yeah. And then when Cowan and Liberty skated and we joined them, we called it LC Speed. Mm-hmm. I swear Buggy and probably Chad's father knew each other because Buggy was the same way.
Yeah.
Buggy would run 3 5-lap races. And if you jumped, you got a 4th. If you're sitting on someone, he'll throw another 5th. I swear he told his son, Terrence, jump on the next one. Because he wouldn't call you back. You had to run it, and then you had to go immediately right back on that line.
Yeah.
And the practice is, I would literally sit there because it was intimidating for me. So I was taking the guy that I was helping out because he was trying to make a 4-man. And I'm sitting there going, holy crap. Like, how can these guys do this like over and over? And I'm going, because Buggy ran a totally different practice than Jim. Jim had more of a beginner thing with a few. Brett would skate there and he would tell Brett, you just do your thing, just train. You know what I mean? But when you go to Buggy's practice, and I would watch, and they would always be like, yeah, China or Japan's coming. And I think the Italian team came one year, and I'm standing there, and the girls just stripped down right at the rink, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? But that's what they did over there. They forgot to tell me that was normal.
Imagine being a 14-year-old going to the World Championships and seeing that.
Oh.
I mean, that's exactly what I saw first time I went to Colombia, and I was like, what? Like, there's like half of the girls out here are naked, just right here on the side of the track.
Like, yeah, because we're, as Americans, we're very closed.
Yeah.
Here's a story for you. So right down the road from when the U.S. World Cup Phil was doing it there. Unfortunately, I could never stay for the outside to see Chad actually skate outside, but I watched him skate indoors, right?
See, I did the outside. I did several of the World Cups outdoors. I never did the indoor ones.
Yeah. So we're right down the road about a half mile. There's this really nice hotel. I always book the hotel place there. Well, the Italian girls were there and their team was there too, because it was so close. You go out, you drive 100 yards, you had the Wawas right there, you keep going, the rink was right on the left-hand side. We're all out there, and all of a sudden, you hear this banging on all the doors. We're on the middle of it. They're up top. They shoved them up top. I guess they couldn't understand them, so they just put them all up there. And they're all yelling, if you want to see all the guys naked, the girls locked them out of their room. So they're running. God. Look, and I'm going, well, no, I don't. But can you keep them up there? Like, in them, it was funny because, I'm not used to that. Obviously, I've never been to it, but to them, that was just like the funniest thing in the world to do to their speed skaters. Yeah. And then you had Japan, or I think, was it Japan or China? And because they did mostly ice, they had a hard time explaining the rules to them, because they would skate with their hands on their back like they were skating ice, and they kept getting knocked down, or they would take out, and they literally had to go to and try to explain to them that you're using an ice form for indoors, which back then I guess was kind of unheard of. Yeah. Now everybody likes to emulate that. You know what I mean? Right. And but that Saturday that I was there, and them girls just stripped down, and I'm like, and Jimmy Wiederholt Sr. was looking at me laughing, going, oh, Danny, we forget to tell you, this is kind of normal over there. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm not afraid to look. But it was still even the rest of that meet, and I always had to go, because that World Cup, I think, was in February there. And I was still in the business that I'm in now, just 20 years later. And I could never take that Monday off to skate, but I always, every time it came around, they're like, yeah, Chad lapped the pack again.
Well, hey, Danny, I tell you what, I need to go pee really quick. Let me go pee. I got quite a few stories to tell you, so just hold tight for a second, okay?
No problem.
And I'll cut this part out of it. All right.
No,
so hold tight.
Yeah, one of the first things I told Jim was, I gotta go get some lifting in. I don't want him swelling up on me without me swelling up.
No,
I lived at Planet Fitness. Unfortunately, I grew up in a rink that not a rink, but a weight room that you could only get strong in, and that's where I met the George Hector and everything like that. And now going into Planet Fitness, it's like, oh man, it's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, drop the weights and alarm goes off, and
oh yeah. So what I do is, when I get on their preacher curl machine, I do one arm at a time. Everyone looks at me like, what's that guy doing? Yeah, I'm doing isolated arm curls, buddy. You want to try them?
Yeah.
And then they look at me like, well, you're not doing any weight, because everyone puts the chair all the way up, and then their elbows are like way up, where I put my stuff all the way down.
Right. It's up in your armpit.
And then I'm only doing 50 pounds, but I'm doing a set of 8, and then I immediately do 10 right afterwards. That's one set.
Yeah.
By the time I get to my second set, on 6, it's burning so bad, and I still have 2 more on this one, 8 on this one, and then I got to do 10 again. But I mean, it's just, but I like I said, I'm not what I used to be. And it's,
Well,
I would definitely need some chemical help to get back. But I mean, if I actually talk to my doctors, I probably shouldn't be doing half the stuff I do. I've got my C6 collapsed completely, and I got cortisone in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was squatting one day, and I leaned forward. I took out L3, L4, and L5 1 rep. Couldn't even move my feet. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And you know what I was thinking when people are like, get up? I'm like, I can't move my legs.
I can't physically get up. Yeah.
I literally could not get up. And they were going, what? I said, I can't move my leg. My feet were doing this, but my legs, nothing was talking. And a lot of people go, well, what were you thinking about? I bet you were thinking about you're never going to have sex again. I'm like, no. Actually, I was right. My left hand, right hand to God, it doesn't matter which one. The first thing I thought of was, I'm never going to be able to skate again. Isn't that weird what you think?
Really?
About? Yeah. Because I don't know. See, you were out of it. There's a guy named Daniel Brown who was also a world team member. His brother Aiden Brown was also world team.
So, because I know we talked on the phone on Sunday. I never knew those names. Never knew those names. After you mentioned those names to me on Sunday, I swear to you, Danny, that actually it was Saturday. It was Saturday. You called me on. I called you on Saturday.
I was confused and said,
yeah.
What day is it?
Saturday.
Like, yeah, practice tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I called you on Saturday, and that night I opened up my Facebook app on my phone, and the one of the brothers and the little sister,
Katrina Storm,
shows up as suggested friends on my Facebook page, and I have no idea who these people are.
Let me tell you something. Katrina would have made world team if COVID wasn't out. These people could go out there and skate a 50-lap race and literally on lap 45 still be burning an 892nd lap. These guys, it's not a flaw. They could never put on weight. Like, they could skate, but if you bumped them, they were just gone because they were always so lean.
Yeah.
But skating wise indoors, oh my God, dude. These guys had no quit in them. Now, they had exactly what you said you had when you went out there. I watched them too, the first time be able to skate a relay. Daniel was screaming at his brother. Like, that's they did not want to lose, right?
Yeah.
And now they're both going to Penn State. They're both going for chemical engineering. They've moved on, but they do come to our practice from time to time, and I still can't beat them. So, which is pretty much, you know what, but there was an actual practice that we had where we were doing a relay. So they kind of matched me up with Daniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, whatever. I mean, I don't care, because when he wants to kick it in, it's one of those beautiful things, like watching Fourth take a corner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was almost, I mean, their cornering was just beautiful to watch, right? Like Herbie Herbison Jr. Herbie.
Mm-hmm.
The corner is beautiful, right? He looks at me. I get the first tag. I'm coming out first. He passes me, looks over, and is like laughing, right? And I said, whatever. So we both come into the corner. Somebody young comes out in front of us that we were trying to help out. He just should have waited a little bit. So Daniel grabs him and goes left. So now he's got the whole rink. Guess what the other Danny had? A wall. I hit the wall sideways. I ended up in the hospital for 3 days. My stomach was bleeding. They said I was out for like 8 minutes. I thought that I was just getting up. Like, they said I was out. My elbow, I got pictures of my elbow. It looked like literally a tennis ball underneath my skin.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like, this is going to put a damper on skating. Once the adrenaline wore off, and once I got out of the hospital, the pain was just unbelievable, because my discs were already shot from weightlifting.
Yeah.
I hit the wall. You know, most rink walls are about your waist. So when I hit, I was trying to roll it where I could tuck and hit the wall, but it caught me sideways. So my whole body just went like that, sideways. And that took me out for about 4 months.
We used to have this at Champions. Paul eventually closed it off, and it was 3 entrances three entrances onto the floor.
Yes.
And there was the one in the middle that was always open. And eventually we had a guy named John Dickerson that he fell, and he fell probably pretty close to, because you had the start line pretty close to entrance number 1.
Yeah.
Entrance number 2 is right at the finish line. And John went to fall pretty close, coming around cone number 4. And when he fell, he slid on his butt and his legs straddled the wall, and he hit it. Obviously went straight in here, but his chest hit it too. His chest hit the corners flat on him. I think he ended up fracturing the sternum and stuff like that. So
yeah, we actually put a board the way our rink is, because we have I think it's 190 by 85 or 90. So it's a pretty good size rink. So we have to close off our start lines on the opposite side. So when you come around cone 2, there's an opening there. We close that one off. That way, when you come out of there, you can bounce off that wood. But on corner 3, cone 3, there is an opening there, but it doesn't matter because you're going away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that
was like our cone 2, our first, the first cone.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's some pretty bad. I mean, I'm sure everyone's got stories about their falls, but that was probably my worst.
You want to know the odd part is, I mean, I fell at the X Games and I broke my ankle. I tell the story all the time about Joey Colazzo hitting me super hard and like throwing me off into the trophies and everything. The actual,
I thought that was Joey, Mantilla.
No. He was, way too young for that. The worst accident I ever had, the worst crash I ever had, it was a practice. We were training. It was a summer. It was our second practice 2 a day for training for Worlds at home. Just before we left for residency or whatever. Anyway, Fourth and I are doing a 10K, and we weren't supposed to go hard. We were supposed to, the point was to win, but Paul made it to where there could be no sprints or breakaways until the very last lap. And so we were skating at this place called Burroughs Park, just right up the road from me now.
Yeah.
And Ashley had quit, even though we weren't sprinting, we were pushing the pace super hard. And Ashley Horgan, she ended up quitting. So she's in the parking lot with Paul, and they're having like a water fight, and they're just fucking around, and they're throwing water at each other and everything. Yeah. And Fred and I are coming down the final straightaway, and we're full blown sprinting. I'm in front, and I'm trying to pull away from him. And every time he would, but we also had to stay in the lane. It was two lane road. But every time he'd try to come around me, he wasn't allowed to go over the yellow line. So I would just I would keep sprinting, but I would kind of lean over this way. He couldn't go around me. So Ashley and Paul are coming out, and Ashley is going backwards, and Paul's kind of chasing her and throwing water at her. Well, Ashley's not paying attention, and Fred and I are full blown sprint coming down to the finish. And as we get closer and closer, Ashley keeps coming further and further this way. So now I can't block the yellow side. I'm having to go further and further this way. We're right at the very end. Ashley looks up and she sees that we're right there. It's like, I put my head down, and it was right in front of the ranger station. They thought it was a car crash. They came out. When I put my head down, my helmet hit her straight in the face. I broke her nose, probably broke something else. My teeth went through my lip on this side, completely split my face open. I broke like 5 ribs. I was literally covered head to toe in road rash. This is like 3 weeks before going to frickin' Worlds. And I'm just completely trashed.
On our show when we had Fourth, that you said you couldn't believe that she kept coming out, and you were so like into the sprint that you were like, yeah, she's going to stop. And then she didn't.
They were just completely oblivious. But like I said, I mean, even what people also don't know this is that at the X Games, they give you a full trial run. And I was the youngest competitor that year at the X Games. And my mom was just terrified.
I saw the video. I couldn't believe these guys flipping over hay bales.
Oh,
like who wants to do that?
There's a video of a girl named Michelle Bazot on practice day. She hit that corner that I ended up hitting and spun me around and where I broke my ankle. She ended up hitting that damn near head on, and she did a full blown somersault all the way over the top and landed on her head. I mean, she probably did three or four flips in the air and landed on her head, and they were doing a good 25, 30 miles an hour.
I never understood that X Games downhill, because I was watching, like I remember watching them. And then whoever made it at the very bottom, you just basically turn around backwards and jumped into a bunch of hay bales. And I'm going, who thought of this particular sport for us? Like this is and you would watch. I know that they take off, and there was, I don't know if it was the first corner or the second one that got everybody, but some of them falls, I'm like,
well, so the track at this particular event, this is the only one I skated. I'm not sure if they ran any more after 1998. I don't think they had in 1999. There were so many of us that fell and got severe injuries in 1998. I don't think they ran it again after that.
I don't blame
But when
them.
we went down, the track kind of veered off to the left, and then it had a nice sharp turn to the right, and then an immediate chicane back to the left.
And then it was
that right there is what was hitting. Like everybody was just clipping that. And then eventually the track kind of came back around and then straightened out, and you're straight down the hill from there.
And I watched some of the skaters like tuck, like they want to go faster. I'm like, aren't you guys like on 80s or something? Like, what are you guys like? That right there just shows you the mentality of what they wanted to go so fast. They would literally do whatever they could to pick up more speed. And it was just, I watched some of them falls and I'm going, is this legal?
Well, you know, what's really weird is again, this maybe a little bit of skating lore, not lore, but just, I don't know if they actually experience this now, because I don't know if they actually have residency now.
I don't think they haven't had residency in a long, and I think that's one of the things that has hurt people that are representing this country in our sport. They
Preparing
don't
to
get
skate
an
as a
opportunity
team.
to skate together.
Yeah.
There's no, like, they meet up in the country and then they go here.
Yeah, because see, we already, if you looked at the world team, if you just for an example, if you take like most of the teams for say 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, there was 5 of us from Champions. There was 3 people from, at least three people from the Wolverines. Then you had like 2, you had 2 or 3 people from the East Coast. Yeah, of course, Keith and Steve Carter and stuff like that. So for them, and then, but almost everybody was on sponsored teams together. So there was already that cohesion of the groups and all that. But one of the things that we used to do at residency, again, something I never understood is, look, I'm a sprinter. It was very clear. I'm not going to do the marathons. I'm not going to do all this other shit, but they would make me, and not only make me, as all the other like guys like Dane Lewis and Chad and Derek would ridicule me because I couldn't finish it. We would go out to this road way outside of Colorado Springs. I believe it was called Bluegrass Road or something like that, because you're, 10,000 feet. So at the very, and it's like I don't know, it's like a 20-mile skate one way and a 20-mile back. And we're followed by one of the vans. I'm like, this is completely pointless for, little fat boy like me. It's pointless. So, but at the very end, if you did not finish the initial run, the initial like 20 miles or whatever, there's a hill that went straight up. I mean, it's like this. And you may, and it's probably a good 600 or 700 meters long. You may be able to sprint, like you get some speed going and you get up that hill. You're probably going to go maybe 100 to 200 meters up that. After you get there, you're literally doing a running start up this hill. I mean, you're just going,
no wheel spin at all.
No, you're just pushing the entire time. But the rule was, if you did not skate up that fucking hill, you couldn't skate down. And that was the best part of all that. So we would literally, I'm like, that's again, and I guess it's a difference in mentality. We would push so hard just for the reward of getting to come back down that hill. And when we would come down that hill, easily, I think the top speed we reached was about 60 miles an hour one time.
And your legs are shot and you're still wanting to go down that hill.
Yeah. And they would give us, we would get a 10 or 15-minute break. Of course, Chad and Derek would get up there and be like, hey, no. We don't need that long. We don't need that long. They want to beat the shit out of us going back.
Well, you know what's funny? I think this region, Lenny, the coach of our team, they just voted on individuals now and having specialized distance now.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone in our region actually voted yes for this. So if you were coming up right now and you were who you were back then, and you said, I'm a sprinter, that's what you're going to train for. That's basically what they voted for. You're not going to be in the 10K. You're not going to be in this. You're our 3, 5, 7. Maybe you might get 1,000, but that's it. That's your races. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you don't have to worry about doing the road. You don't have to worry about doing this. Your best chances for the United States are sprint. That's what you're going to do. We're going to have a coach that's what you're going to focus on.
Yeah.
If you do any type of thing, you do like a 5K just to get the lactic acid out of your legs. That's it. Everyone else that wants to do the medium races, they got a coach for medium. And then you got your Chads, Daves, and your Derek Downings and your Derek Paris. They're marathons. They're not going to be on the track for the 500 because that's not the race. They probably don't want to skate it anyway. Who knows? That's what they're going to do.
Right.
So there was a vote. And now we're going to see where it goes this year for nationals and see if they incorporated in this year's picking the world team, because
I think they certainly should.
I think Columbia actually does that.
Well, look, there's no reason not to. If
Exactly.
you're going to take 6 people, I understood when we were skating, they were only taking 4. There was only 4 for everybody. And so I understood that you kind of need everybody has to be able to contribute a little bit more. Now you're taking 6 people. There is absolutely no reason why the person who goes out and wins the 100-meter drag race or the 200-meter, pursuit, whatever, should have to go out and skate the 10,000-meter race to make the team.
Doesn't make any sense.
Because what happens? What happens if the person? Because it's happened out there before. Yeah. It's happened that you had these skaters that go out and win some of these events, and then they can't get points in any other race, and they end up not making the team.
Yeah.
But they're the best sprinter out there.
Yeah. And me and Jim on one of our shows also talked about the world team shouldn't be selected on one race. It should be a series of races. Like do 3 races. And then if you have your sprinters and all your sprinters make all 3 races, you take the top 2 sprinters and you take the top 2 middle distance and make sure that they're consistent on what they're running, if that makes sense. You can't determine that on one race.
Well, with like ice, obviously with ice, they do something very similar, which is the World Cup structure.
Exactly.
But that's also,
we could do that internally in the United States and have 3 races from Colorado to the bank track in Florida to something else where it would give an opportunity to see if this guy's really consistent or did he just have a really good day? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll be honest. If that had been the case, I may never have made the world team in 1996.
I'm not picking on you.
I'm just saying in general. Yeah. If that, I personally, I think that there's a lot of ways that the picking and the selection process could be done better. I think that it was done right back in the 90s because the population was so big. Now you don't have that. Now it needs to be, now there should be there needs to be, even though it sounds weird, because the population was so big with so many quality skaters, it did not matter whether you run, 1 event or 6 events. The cream, it was going to be there. Regardless.
Everybody was very consistent back in the day.
Yeah. Now
today, our skaters aren't as, you may have a phenomenal race and get to the next race and not even make it out of a final because of something.
Yeah.
Back then you knew what fourth, you knew what you were going to do. You knew what Chad was going to do. Everybody ran pretty much the same exact race, like all the time. You didn't have all the injuries. And if you did, they were extremely good with not showing or telling anybody.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I was getting into when they were talking about the standing refs. It's, our sport's getting faster. And I'm like, well, why don't you do something with the rule book? But we could talk about that for the next 8 hours. I'm not going to, because
well, you and I had that conversation. I do want to say this really quick.
all right.
I do want to say that I can't criticize too much the athletes that, from an athletic standpoint today. I can criticize a lot of behavior. I do have some very big critiques of the structure of the sport, the way it's outlined today. But you and I did have this conversation on Saturday, and Fred and I ended up talking about it afterwards because I had you on speakerphone. We were sitting there talking with him. And something that bothered both him and I, and it's like we both said it at the same time after we got off the phone with you. Why the fuck do all of these kids know about the rule book? Why is the rule book being pushed so hard on the athletes? Because I'm going to tell you, when we skated,
it's excuses.
We didn't know shit.
Yeah.
We knew 6 basic rules.
Go fast.
Well, you go fast, but look, from the very start, jumps, ride ins, ride outs, don't come out of the relay box early.
Yep.
Because I came out of the relay box early during one of the national championships. We were like 3 seconds ahead of the national record. Force said that was rule 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And then the 6th one was don't cut the track.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, I don't, hey, look, I'm all for, I do like the fact that USARSS or USRSS runs a FEARS rule book because it's 16 pages. It mimics the world style of racing. But still, I don't give a shit about that rule book. What does I don't know why our coaches knew it, our refs knew it. Paul knew the rule book. Rob Dunn knew the rule book. David Downing knew the rule book. Jimmy Blair Sr. knew the rule book, because if something happened, they could stage a protest at nationals. But none of us as skaters ever knew this fucking rule book. But now all I hear about from all of these skaters is rule this, rule that, rule this. And I'm like,
and the sad part is they're all obsolete for what the numbers that we're running in the sport. They're taking quad rules and try to implement them on inlines. And I said something to Jimmy the other day. We were talking because he had called me up, and I said, hey, Jimmy, maybe we should just start throwing powder and resin down, because that's the rule book. Like, come on, people. The rule book, page 1, sportsmanship, all coaches sign. You can't be arguing, cussing, yanking your skaters off the floor. Rule 2, rule 3, it literally could be 10 pages long. But
I think I might get eliminated out of there just from the way I talk on the show, huh?
Yeah, but some of these people, they'll go back to a rule like 1970 that has nothing to do with our sport today, just so their kid can skate or do whatever. And look, the NFL every year has a coaches meeting to talk about rules that implement for the safety of the athletes.
Yeah.
We're using the same rule book, guarantee it, from 30, 40 years ago.
But again, what we're doing is not rocket science. You've got expensive skates on, but the only form of protection we're wearing is a helmet.
That's it.
You're wearing spandex. So
I burnt them into my legs like you have plenty of times.
Like, what are we doing though with all of this other nonsense? You're going to run into people. We're not running into people head first like football players. So I understand. But why are we going through this process?
They're protecting the refs more than they're protecting the skaters. Well, we can't have rolling refs no more because they can't keep up with their speed. See, right here, 1972, we can implement. It's like, shut up. That rule doesn't even apply to today's thing. And me and Jim, when we get into talking about rules, I feel like banging my head into a table, because these coaches will literally go back and pull a rule out that, it's like, are you kidding? That's like page 275. What happened to, like you said, don't ride out. You can't push. I always tell people in our practice, if a skater starts skating away from you, do not take your hand and go with it, because they're going to get you for pushing and they're going to DQ you. Take your hand back and let him go or her go. And I just don't understand how they can sit there and say that our sport's getting faster. The technology of our sport's getting better. But yet, let's pull this rule out from 1971 when we were skating 12-second laps. Then we're going to implement it on a totally different boot, totally different frame. The people are running 8.8s in 2002, but we're going to use the same rule book from 1969.
But I go back to that is when it comes down to what everybody is doing, it is racing. And they have sissified this shit. Yeah, okay, we understood you do not ride out, you do not ride in. Other than that, you're supposed to fucking race and you're supposed to get rough.
You're gonna bump. You're gonna and what did I say Saturday night? It's turned into a beauty pageant.
Yeah. Look, I tell you what, it was again, I sound so old, it's but in 1997, we were in Argentina. And we did a marathon, which was on an interstate, just like say I-95 or I-45 or whatever.
Gotcha.
They shut it down for the marathon.
Kind of like the tour.
Yeah, but it was just one straight go.
Okay.
We were skating, of course, as a team. There was no intention of me finishing. I was told very, very clearly that my job is to protect the other two guys. Charlie Craven,
as long as you can.
Fourth Lacey. Me and Matt Steele were not expected to finish the race. Matt was going to go a little bit further than me. Well, there was a point in the race where Charlie was in front of me, and no, Fred was in front of me. It was actually Fred. A kid from Chile came in. I'm right behind him. A kid from Chile literally comes in and elbows me and steps in front of me. And I push him back out. I just push him completely to the side, and he steps in and he flat punches Fred in the back.
Wow.
I end up grabbing this guy's arm because I pushed him. Now I pushed him this way. Instead of pushing him that way, I pushed him this way. I end up grabbing this guy's left arm, and we're doing good 25 miles an hour. I grab this guy's left arm and I literally lift him up over the pack and on his head. Dump him. International racing rules. The refs never saw it. Can't stage a protest. No one observed it. The guy ended up coming back by leaned over the back of a motorcycle. Now, I'm not advocating going out there and beating the shit out of each other.
Exactly.
But at the same time,
you got to protect your team.
You're out there to race.
Yeah.
And now everything's so touchy feely. You can't do this. You can't do that. Oh, come on. Fuck that. Get out there and race.
Yeah. I mean, you know what?
Push around a little bit.
Me and you and everyone else probably thinks the same way. Rubbing is racing. If you have a strong core, it ain't going to matter who's trying to get in because they ain't going to get in anyway.
Right.
And go out there and have fun. I mean, we're all friends at the end of the day. We're all probably going to drink a beer, do this, do that.
Right.
But, you saw that video at Weber's rink where it looked like he was trying to hurt the guy's leg. And again, me and Jim at first said it's not about the two skaters. It's about what happened. And Jim said, if that was a Chad Horner, Joey Mantilla doing that,
someone got an ass whooping.
And their teams would have literally stopped skating to go over there and defend. Yep. It's weird. It's like, I just, and when we dwell on the past a lot, because we had such a successful era with the quality of the skaters that were there. I mean, I was telling Jim one day, I don't care if the finals for the 500-meter pro men or senior men were at midnight. I'm going to be at the Pershing Center watching that. It was a no-brainer. Like today, it's I don't know if it's safe sport. I don't know if it's, again, I'm not disrespecting any coaching. Did we get comfortable? And that's where we're comfortable at. I don't know. I know that we have a lot, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. We have a lot of talented skaters that are skating, that are up and comers, that can really do something. But if you're afraid to go back and take that old school mentality of training and incorporate it with new technology that we have, shame on you. I mean, it worked in 96 to 2006. It's going to work again today. And the only difference is we have these and you can Google whatever information you want to do to get faster. Matter of fact, you can see this right here has a quad lock on it because it goes right on my bike. Because when I bike, I put on my heart rate monitor and I do what I have to do, and that's what I'm going to do. But it's just crazy when you look at where the sport was and where it is today.
Yeah.
I know that every sport has its up and downs. I think that the sport is definitely climbing back, and let's hope that it does.
Well, Danny, look, I'll tell you, if my mom had her way, I would have never raced the way I raced.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, where we are, it appears to me today, is that the mom mentality has taken over. My little baby doesn't need to get hurt.
Well, you know what? Then I think that people need to understand, one, what the sport is all about.
Yes.
I'm sure me and you wouldn't want to be on the in a baseball game and some dude like Nolan Ryan throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastball at our head either.
Right.
And I'm sure that I wouldn't want to get hit with a golf ball coming off a club head at 200 miles an hour. No. And I'm sure that I wouldn't want to be in a NASCAR. If you watch the Daytona, the guy flips over, lands back on air, walks away. No one wants to do that, but you have to pick that sport. That's why football helmets have gotten more technical. That's why all this stuff has gotten better. If you don't want your son to play football, but you want him to make $10 million a year, then you're going to have to pick which one your son or whatever wants to do. It's a no-brainer. Every sport has its probably injuries, just like with what you do and what I do. No one cares that I could be driving my tanker truck and it blows up. Oh, hey, you picked that.
Right.
Well,
occupational hazard.
Exactly. But in hindsight, you know what? Like I say, the love of skating should always be there. And that will make you enjoy the sport and the disciplines that are in skating. And I think that you, Fourth, Chad, we can go on forever, Jessica, it doesn't matter what names. You guys love to skate. And when you were introduced to the sport of speed, the drive, the passion of loving to skate pushed you to that next level. And I'm not saying you don't love to skate to this day. That's obviously not what I'm saying. But the passion for that, and that's the reason why you started your podcast, and it's the reason why we started our podcast, because we want people to get back to where, don't just wear the colors, represent and know that you trained and did your best to go out there and make a name for yourself like you did in the 4-man. You competed not only with everyone else that was on that floor, but you competed in your 4-man too, because you constantly pushed each other to do better. Sure, there was probably fights, words, I hate you. But at the end of the day,
a lot of those.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, guess what? That's why you guys were champions. That's why Jessica Smith, where she went. That's why Aaron, Joey, Brittany, they all did it because they probably all argued, probably smacked the crap out of each other. Sorry, I didn't cuss, but whatever. But that was the drive and the energy that you needed to get to the level that they're at. Whether they make a mistake or don't skate their best at a certain event has nothing to do with Joey can probably tell you countless amount of times his hips were pulled, his arms were yanked, this, that. Absolutely. You can. Chad, there's stories of Chad losing his front wheel and still winning a 500-meter sprint on it is what it is. The strongest will survive.
I had this discussion. I think it was with I forget. No, you know what? It was a show I did on Friday with Narada Jones. And again, it's not to say, hey, this era is better than, the new one or any of that stuff. What I do know definitively is different about people in their early 20s and teens today versus people in their late 20s and 30s and 40s is that they just haven't been punched in the fucking teeth enough.
Oh, you know what? I think where you're going is the skating, when you were skating, was more exciting, but the quality of the skaters today could be a lot better if they were just like you said. It doesn't hurt sometimes to get punched in the face to know that, you know what? Okay, I can take that. All right, let's keep pushing. Let's keep okay, I fell. I'm going to get up. Let's keep doing it. If someone took that fall that you took with you in fourth, they'd never skated again.
Yeah.
I mean, and people have to understand, but that's in every sport. I mean, you can be the best running back and have your knee blown out and you're done for your career's over.
Watching the athletes of today, they are phenomenal. They've got great equipment. There's a lot of technology out there. It's the only thing that is missing from them is
the drive.
Is that drive. And yeah, I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. And you know, you have your first boyfriend or girlfriend, you're growing up, and you lose that boyfriend or girlfriend, your heart's broken. And you think the world's going to end. You don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But you get through, you go through another one and then another one and another one, and it gets easier. And the next thing you know is, you're in your mid-20s, you've dated several people, and it's like, okay, well, hey, I love this person, but for whatever reason, it's not working. It still hurts. I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
Skating or anything else in life is really no different. As long as you have something to reference. And, that's not to say, hey, go out there and crash. But, when we would skate, Paul would throw shit at us. He would throw hockey balls, tennis balls. He would throw the pylons at us and stuff. And sometimes it was just out of pure anger for us doing something stupid. But the majority of the time, it was to have us aware that shit's going to go wrong. It's not going to be perfect. Toughen the fuck up.
That's right.
Be ready to race, because that's what you're here for. You're not here to screw around.
Yeah, it's funny because Brett was down there helping out Renee, and he said when their skaters got tired, they just kind of stopped. He said he couldn't believe it. It was like, put your hands on your back, get some more knee bend, and recover. He said, oh my God, the first thing he said, it's a bunch of pussies. But again, it's hard to explain to people that if Joey quit every time he got tired, he wouldn't have 29 world titles.
Exactly.
If Chad did quit every time he got tired, he wouldn't have 52.
Right.
God, Jessica Smith, if Aaron Jackson quit when she made that stumble and Brittany didn't give her that opportunity, and she goes, well, but I didn't do it, so I'm not going to put a lot of effort into this. Right. She went out there and she said, I have an opportunity, and I've got the drive, and I've got the effort. And after her fourth step, you couldn't see her legs move anyway, because they were just all over. I mean, almost a flawless 500 meter I've ever seen one.
Isn't she an awesome athlete?
I'm telling you, well, they always sit there and go, cool. You can't have leg speed on ice. But that first corner, when she hit it, she looked like an inliner.
No, bullshit. When I first started skating, again, I was living in Canada. When I went to ice, I was in Canada. And the way it works up there is every weekend they would set up all of the equipment, and you would have races, and that's how you were setting your PRs and their track and everything every single weekend. So we also got the opportunity to skate whenever they would come in for like the World Cups.
Exactly.
And they would there was this little Japanese guy. He could not have been taller than 5'4", 5'5". I have never in my life, by the way, would smoke a cigarette before he went and raced his 500 meters. So because his lungs would open, he would smoke a cigarette. And I have never in my life seen someone move their feet so fast. And that was coming from Inline. And my coach the entire time is telling me, slow your feet down.
Because they want you to have a stronger push instead of faster feet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running. I'm getting up just like that. I would run on. Anyway, Aaron reminded me of this. Aaron reminded me of the way this guy was. And it was unbelievable to me. But watching Aaron, she's the one race I did watch.
I mean, when she hit that first corner, I saw an inline speed skater.
Yeah.
Because her legs were moving way faster than the person she was with, which they always say no. And then when she hit that straightaway and that person was just coming around the corner, you're like, oh, this is a good run.
Yeah.
And she slowed it down on the second corner, but her speed, the way that she did that, I mean, she could have held her breath that whole race and still had more air in her lungs. I mean,
She's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was funny because Lenny was telling me a story. I think they were at the before I got to get going. My wife wants to get some dinner.
Yeah.
She came to some DC race or something, right? It's land of some, I don't know what it was. And so Leonard was skating and she was behind him. And he was telling us this story the other day. He goes, he said, I'm going, hey, do you want to take the lead? And she goes, oh, no, you're doing a good job. I know I'm going to win the race anyway. Now, Leonard's about $180, so he's probably Chad's weight. He's massive. He's got a lot of power, right? He just thought that he was like, you go, girl. Like, really? You want me to pull you? You should be pulling me. I'm the one that needs help. He said that her attitude, her mindset, just great personality. Yeah. She's just a really humble person, you know, and you know, it's
well, I'll put this out there. I hope that with everything they're doing for her, yeah. I hope she makes $100 million.
Oh,
I hope
she takes advantage of every single endorsement that they give her.
Everything
because
they're trying
to labeled that girl, and I don't think it's fair the way they promote her.
I don't think she likes it.
American athlete that trained her ass off to get where she did, and she had effort, she had determination, she had training, she had everything.
They boiled it down to one thing.
She went out there and she proved to the rest of the world that I am the best female 500-meter woman in the world. Don't put a color in front of it. Don't do nothing else, because that color did not win her that race.
Right.
Her training, her effort, and everything won her that race.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I hope she takes full advantage.
Oh,
honestly, you know what? God bless her.
Yeah. I hope she gets the Patrick Mahomes contract of $300 million.
Yeah. I hope
and then I hope she takes her engineering degree and goes out there and makes even more money.
Yeah, because you can't hold it against her for what everybody else is saying. But you know what? Damn it, Aaron, capitalize on that shit. You take advantage of this shit, because people they're trying to use you. Use them. Make that money.
Right. Because in 6 months, look, Chad, the most decorated athlete in the world, got nothing. I didn't see him in a commercial. He's not announcing the Olympics.
Right.
He didn't get no Kellogg's endorsement deals. He wasn't on the front cover of a Wheaties box that I know of.
Well, you and I can have a conversation as to why that occurred.
I'm sure.
I have the answer for that one. But real quick before you go, ironically, this is why I want to say Aaron should take full advantage of this.
Absolutely.
Because I had a conversation, of course, Apollo went out there, phenomenal skater, dominated, reported worth about $50 million from all of his endorsements and everything he's done.
I hope she passes it.
I hope she quadruples and triples that. Yeah. But ironically, what I don't want to have happen to Aaron is what I see on YouTube. I turned on YouTube today, and the very first video that came up, and everybody should probably check this out, is what happened to Apollo Anton Ono. It's like he's a byline now. It's what happened to him. You don't hear from him. He's gone. He's nothing involved.
It's funny. I see him all the time on Facebook. I see him all the time. Look,
I'm just saying, as far as like in the world of sports and things like that, why wasn't he at the Olympics? Why wasn't he being celebrated? Why all this? He's decorated.
Here's my answer to that. You take your whole life and dedicate it to a sport.
Yeah.
And when you're done with that sport, and let's say you're 27 years old, and for 25 years, you've been doing that same sport over and over and over. Tell me how excited you are when that comes around. Tell me how excited you have. Literally, Chad, be a great answer. Great person to ask that. You have literally sacrificed your childhood, teenage years, senior years, your 20s, your 30s, and now you want to know why I'm picking and choosing what event I want to come to? You know
I think
what?
there's, I'll tell you, I happen to know a little bit more behind it.
Well, I'm just using Chad as an
Well, no,
example.
not Chad. I mean, the Apollo
Oh,
situation. I'm glad Apollo made all the money he could in the world. And Danny, I know you got to go, but hey, I want to put this out there. Last person that came across, I got a guy came across my Facebook page the other day, Freddie Young. Do you know that name?
sounds familiar.
One of the greatest athletes in speed skating to never go on to like huge notoriety. Phenomenal athlete, was a great guy. He's actually a city council member now. He's from Las Vegas, city council member now in Missouri. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was awesome. I'm reaching out to Freddie and everything. You should you take a look at him. Great guy. One of the very best athletes that never like he
Well,
made
I've always said that true champions sometimes don't have medals. It's what they did and how they helped out is what made them a champion.
Casey.
You know what I mean? I mean, and people need to understand that if you're doing your best and you take 6th, and in the next race you take 5th, and in the next race you take 4th, you're getting better. Coach shouldn't yell at you because you take 6th place out of 6. Look, if you're giving your 100% and you're out there having fun, man, that's everything.
Look,
I've
Casey
always,
Boudier,
even when I carried my coach's card, I've always said, don't worry about your placement. Did you have fun? We'll work on the other stuff to get you up there.
yeah.
You know, and I think that's what maybe some coaches have forgotten about. They always want to be first and they want their team to be first. And that's great. I mean, everybody wants to be number one until you're there and you got that target on your back. And now everybody wants to take you out.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But
well, Danny, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on your show, man.
Thanks for having me
on my show. Thank you.
Yeah. And you know what, Jason, can't thank you enough, man. I appreciate what you did.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we raise enough, and I think it's going to be great for everybody. And I think that our shows, Mr. Rogers, it doesn't matter what show, just go out there and like skating, support them, watch them. It's all entertainment. That's why we do what we do. You know what I mean?
You know, I tell everybody my show, what I did here is I didn't create this show centered around skating. I just happen to know a lot of people and I do love the sport. And so if I can give, if I give a platform for it, I'd certainly like for that to happen. I'd like to see some better results come out of the sport. Hey, and I know that I'm not making a lot of fans with a lot of the shit I say. I don't talk different.
Hey, we don't, you know that for a fact.
Yeah.
We don't.
I'm not a politician. I'm not trying to sell that, but there's going to be people paying attention to it. But Danny Roberts, JD Happy Hour, find you guys Monday and Thursdays, Facebook Live. What's the time?
Live Monday and Thursday. And if you want to know about the Venmo, I believe it is at J Larson 8.
J Larson 8. Yep. That's where I
send
the money to.
JD Happy Hour, it's all up there. It's a simple donation. It's going for a great cause. It just, people talk about how the world team never has anything when the worlds get together. Now we're trying to do something about it and just give a little bit back to a sport that we love, and hopefully make some people a lot more comfortable when they go there. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. All right, Danny, man, appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You too. Hey, buddy, and hope to see you. Come back on our show. Hey, we'll do show to show. Hey, we'll bring you on, Mr. Rogers on. We'll have them all going.
By all means, man. I'm there.
Thank you very much for having me, man.
All right. Thank you, Danny. Talk to you later. Bye.
Peace.